Go to TAPgiles.com to learn dreams, engage my services, and support the channel. I think I'll show how this 3D side-scroller thingy works. So the idea of this is you can like move up and down and left and right and jump and stuff. The camera only follows left and right though, and like when you start looking left, now you can move up and down and it will still look left, and if you start looking right you can move up and down and it still look right until you push left again. So it's kind of in the style of some like classic arcade games. So let's see if we can build that. Let's start with a platforming puppet, and we don't need that or that. Cool. So we want to know if the player pushes left or right first. So we've got the controller sensor in here, and we just want, let's just make a chip first. And we'll have a node going into it, and we'll wire left stick local. There's left stick over here, which is actually relative to the angle you're facing. So if you push up here, it will give you a value that in the scene looks up there. But if you are facing this way, then it will point in a different direction. We don't want any of that. We want just what the player is doing with the left stick. So that's left stick local. And now we can put that away and not worry about it. And this is the stick, so we'll give it an icon. So we want to know if it's left or right or up or down. And this wire contains all of that information. And we can see that by it actually has multiple colors going through it. If you look at something else like this wire here, just has one color. And this one has multiple colors with multiple wires going through it, multiple values. So to get at those multiple values, we can use a splitter. So this is called a fat wire. If you wire a fat wire into a splitter, you can see what the fat wire has. It has, this one is the stick type of fat wire. So it has an X, which is left and right, and a Y, which is up and down. And so this is what the player is doing with the left stick. If we use a number displayer on X, because we just care about left or right, and look at the numbers that gives us, and play time. Oh, we'll make it make this controller sensor remote controllable, so we don't have to possess this object to see what we get. So let's just play time, and then if we push right, we get positive numbers, minus numbers when you go left, and positive numbers when you go right, and that's what this gives us for left and right. So we want to know if we are going left, that's when it's negative. So if we use a calculator, wire that in, and go less than 0. So the top number is what we're getting from the stick, and then we've got the mode, and then the other part of the operation. So is the stick less than 0? And when it is, it sends a signal from the result. And when it is not, when we push right, then it's not sending a signal from the result. And then when we want to go right, that will be more than 0. So this one's left, this one's right. So when you push left, the left one is sending a signal. When you push right, the right one is sending a signal. So you could do it this way. Another way you can do it is use a splitter like that. And when it's a single value like this with those thin wires, which is a single color, and then you split that, it actually gives you a positive and negative signal. So this is like how positive is it, and this is how negative is it. So when this sends like a negative 1, I can show you over here. So when this is sending a negative number, it's giving a positive number from the negative side of it. And then when it's sending a positive number, when you push right, the positive one is sending a positive number. So you can do this kind of either way. So I'll just do it this way. Cool. So let's use, so now we want to kind of lock in which way we're facing so that it won't change until we actually look in a different direction. For that we can use a selector to kind of have modes. So a selector has lots of channels, and you can change how many channels it has, and only one of them can be active at any given time, and that channel will send a signal. So then if B becomes active, then A won't be active and sending a signal. Only B will be sending a signal. So we can use that for various different things. So we want to set it to A when we're going right, and if we start going left, we want to set it to B. So when a signal goes into B, B will become the active one. So if we look at that now, play time, pushing left, B becomes active, and I let go, and nothing changes. And then push right and A becomes active, and then let go and nothing changes. So now we want to actually do something. Now we've detected if we should be facing left or should be facing right. Now we want to actually make that happen. To do that, we want the character to look left or look right, and there's a gadget for that called a look at rotator. So bring one of those in. So we've got this look at rotator. The way this works is this arrow, it rotates the object it's affecting so that this arrow points in a direction or at a thing. So if we have a tag, and we'll just give this a random name, and then I'll use up and down on here to cycle through the names of tags. And now if we play time, it's going to rotate so that that arrow points at that tag as best it can. We'd need like tags on either side of the character, like at very far ends of the scene and things. And if you get closer to that, so as the player gets closer to it, it can start like looking in a funny direction. So ideally we don't want to look at a position in the scene because there are potential issues there, but you can give it a scene space direction. So first let's fix this arrow. So I'm going to turn on the grid, use L1 and triangle to use the grid of the puppet, and now rotate that to point kind of where the puppet is actually facing. And we can reset that and turn that off. Cool. So we want to make a direction for this to look in. So a gadget we can use as a trick is to use the movement sensor. So we don't actually care what the movement is of the puppet, but this gives us these directions, and you can see on the gizmo it's got a Z-axis, a Y-axis, and an X-axis, and if you rotate the character they don't change. So we always have this reliable X-axis we can use, for example. Alternatively, if you have local space, it does move with the character, but we just don't want that at the minute. You can also move these around, so now I've got a direction value that's pointing in that direction, but we'll leave it on like this, so we get a direction that's pointing just right like that. So if we plug that into that scene space direction, now it's looking right. And if we, just to demonstrate, if we change to what way that's pointing, it's going to point in that direction. So now we want to be able to tell it to look left instead. One way of doing this would be to multiply this direction by -1, because that will just kind of invert it, and it would end up being a direction that points like that instead. And that's exactly what we want. So let's go, for this we can actually use a simple calculator. So we take the direction we have, put it into there, and then we take the output, which you can see is still a fat wire, just like this direction thing is. So it just does some operation on all of the values in this fat wire and then outputs it. So if we multiply that by -1, so you can drag these sliders, or you can use L1 and square, and then we can type in -1, like that, and now it will be looking off to the left. Now the trick is we want to make this just +1 sometimes and -1 other times. So let's put this to +1 and use a keyframe to set this to -1. And now all we need to do is power this on to make it negative, and it will be facing a different direction. And we'll power that when we want to go left, which is on this B channel, as we figured out before. So now pointing to the right. Let's just make this faster. Like that. So that I can test and stuff while the camera's just staying on this side, I'll use a camera pointer, and that just uses the default built-in camera, but it says just stay at this angle. For some reason there's this bug where you have to turn on stay upright. Otherwise something about this setup doesn't work with it. So let's do that. So pointing left and pointing right, and I can move like up and down in the scene and nothing changes. Move, yeah, so that was fine. So now that's sorted.
Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something interesting. Go to patreon.com/TAPgiles to learn something new every day.